And we are live. Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Level Up Live. I am Dr. Sharita Gaskins-Tillett, your host. Welcome to Level Up Live again, where we feature the extraordinary accomplishments of female physicians, both inside and outside of the exam room. I have a very exciting and interesting guest to share with you this evening. We will just give a few more minutes for people to come in, and then we will get started. So I'm going to introduce our guest. Our guest this evening is Dr. Maria Duroseau. She is an experienced pediatrician and parenting coach. She was born and raised in Zambia before she immigrated to the US, where she became a physician. Dr. Duroseau's practice has spanned 3 states, serving in different capacities as the family violence champion, learning trauma informed care, culturally competent care, and then as the pediatric medical administrative officer, utilizing her skills from the Harvard Pediatric Leadership program. Certification as a life coach served to bring all these skills together to support parents, teenagers in developing essential skills for a successful transition to adulthood. Dr. Duroseau is also very passionate about supporting and enhancing parenting skills, as the studies and in her personal experience show that one of the best gifts a parent can give their children is to be the best version of themselves. Welcome, Dr. Duroseau.
Thank you, Dr. Gaskins. Thank you for having me on your platform. This is great.
Thank you for coming. So I usually like to just start by having you tell us, if there's more about you that we don't know that I didn't read in your bio. Tell us about you and then tell us about your journey through medicine.
Okay, so I am living in Michigan now, which is quite the opposite from where I was born. So I've kind of transitioned in so many ways here. I'm married, have 2 kids, and I love to read, travel, eat most things with chocolate. And I think that football, not soccer, but we all know it's called football, is the only game anyone should play.
Very good. Are you a soccer player?
Oh, yeah, I used to
Football
be.
player?
I did when I was littler, but never, I didn't obviously make it to the big leagues.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Okay, so now you grew up in Zambia and then you came to the US at what age?
I was 17 when I moved. I came out for college. So,
Okay.
you know,
All right.
the
And so how'd you end up in medicine?
medicine. So I moved from my country to come to school here for precisely that same reason, to become a physician. I've known since I was much younger that I wanted to be a physician. If you'd asked me when I was 10, I would have told you I wanted to become a pediatric cardiologist.
Okay.
Then, of course, as I went through residency, I said, okay, I really don't want to do that. But I've known for a very long time that that's what I wanted to do.
Okay. So what kind of gave you that insight? Was it a particular thing? Was it someone that you saw in your community that you admired?
Where I had a lot of strep throat when I was younger. And so then I went to the doctors a lot. At some point, this is kind of fuzzy and I piece it together with my medical knowledge now. Somebody thought I might have rheumatic heart disease or
Mm.
rheumatic heart fever. So I went in there and got a lot of tests all the time. And I remember this one time they wanted to do acupuncture on me. And I was like, what are we doing? My mom says, well, maybe they should try. And I asked her why. She says, well, because I want to see. It was pretty funny. I know, pretty funny. But I spent a lot of time in clinics because of that. So I was like, you know what? This looks really interesting. And that's what I want to do.
Okay. All right. So now there are many kids, I think, who say they want to be a doctor when they grow up, but not so many actually become doctors. So, so you came to the US, you did undergraduate, I imagine, and then medical school.
Right.
So how did you come to choose your field?
Pediatrics, I've always loved kids. I think kids are the best people you can ever find. There's no in between with kids. You know exactly where you are with them. They're fun. They keep us young. They teach us a lot, and they remind us sometimes of what life is, what is the essence of life, we stand to learn a lot from peds patients.
Yeah,
Kids
yeah.
in general, yeah.
Okay. All right. And so now, um, you're a pediatrician, but you're also doing some coaching. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
So tell me about that.
Oh my goodness. So COVID, I think when we all say COVID, we kind of know where this is headed. But COVID, I was happily practicing as a pediatrician, loved what I did, had this idea that there's job security. This is just, physician life, right? Well, then COVID hits, and the hospital I was working at, all kinds of things behind the scenes happening. I don't know if I even know the full end of the story. All I know is that at some point, the powers that be decided that even though I was working full time and I was still going to work every day with my own homemade PPE, apparently I owed the hospital $12,000.
Wow.
So then I look at this, and it was so funny. My husband jokingly said when we were looking at the paper, he goes, "Well, where do you go every day? I thought you were going to work." And I'm like, "Me too."
Right. Right.
But it was so interesting to experience this because here I was, I'm working, and I'm working and really living my dream. I moved to a whole other country, whole other continent to do this. And suddenly it seemed like there wasn't that job security anymore. And it just had taken a shift. So we relocated to a different state, and which is still very much of a blessing that I found another job and so on. But I didn't like the fact that I had to move my family because of a job,
Right.
even when I didn't want to.
So
So
now
I
I want to interrupt you for a second. Did you move your family because of a non-compete, or it was a better job?
No, non-compete.
Okay.
So I could, it was a smaller town, and so the non-compete meant that I just couldn't work in that town anymore.
Yeah. So for our viewers who don't know medicine, don't know about non-compete, it actually is a document, a part of your contract that specifies a particular area in which you cannot work once you leave there. And so sometimes physicians are forced to move completely out of their area to avoid the impact of the non-compete clause. So I'm sorry.
Right.
Go ahead.
Right. No, and so the hospital I worked for actually had satellite clinics. So the non-compete included those satellite clinics, which made the radius even wider. So we have to move. I have to find a new job, which I did, but I did not like that. That was what my option was.
Yeah.
And so it really started this introspection of what's going on here, and do I really have the life that I thought that I did and that I had worked hard for, when I can suddenly have to make a decision like this to just be uprooted and move. So I went through this, just phases of thinking and this feeling of being stuck. And then even the new job that I got, I did like it, but there were some things that I didn't want, but I didn't feel like I had the power to negotiate. It was just like, well, here's the job, you need the job, take it. And
Sure.
so it really started this shift. And that's when I discovered coaching, just because I needed to kind of look at different things and options. So I was watching this Leverage and Growth Summit. It's a community online.
Yes.
And yeah, so a lot of physicians were on there and talking about just what are all the other things that we could do. And it was amazing seeing what people are doing out there because, from age 10, I want to be a physician, and this is where I've been this whole time. And so I'd never looked at life outside of medicine, one, because I'd never had to, and two, it just had never, occurred to me. So I'm watching all these different people doing all of these different things, and it just opened my eyes to this idea that there's more to me than I can do. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this or talked about it this way, but I've heard a lot of physicians, my friends, colleagues, where we're like, well, I'm just a doctor. And we say that so casually, but just a doctor, all the
Right.
skills that it
Right.
takes
Exactly.
to become
Exactly.
a
Yeah.
physician. And I saw how I was kind of underselling, undercutting myself, and that really I didn't have to be stuck. And so as I looked at that and I spent more time looking and talking, I went into coaching. I got certified as a life coach because one of the things I've always wanted to do is be in the parenting space, because through my practice, you just see so many things that the situation could be different. People are asking you for all of this advice. And apparently I was really good at it, because sometimes parents would schedule an appointment just because they wanted to talk to me. I was like, okay,
Wow.
well, what's the medical? Why, we just want to talk to you. Or they would bring their teenagers in and they'll say, here, doctor, do you talk to them? And then they step out of the room. So
Okay.
then I thought, okay, well, this is something that I can do, which I've already kind of been doing that. But now that I was exposed to coaching, it just really consolidated the ways to bring all of these skills to the forefront. And here I am.
So, do you feel like the coaching itself is what empowered you to make that shift?
Absolutely. In the very basic sense, coaching is about two things: one, reducing suffering, and two, creating more of what you want. So, one of my pain points was that feeling of being stuck, like I have no options. And so it really opened up, my mind, as I was just one simple thought. Actually, it was two for me. One, I can do hard things. Because a lot of the times I was like, well, what would I do? I mean, I don't know how to do this. But it was learning I can do hard things. Just that simple shift in my thinking.
Yeah.
So even if it's going to be hard, I can do hard things. I've proven to myself that I can do hard
Absolutely.
things.
And I think you're right. I talked to a lot of physicians and I myself too, at a certain point felt stuck. And I think it's great when life gives us an opportunity. So, COVID has been a real eye opener for a lot of us in a lot of different ways. And so, it kind of opened your eyes to the fact that you weren't as autonomous as you thought you were, as you hope you had been,
Right.
or as secure as you
Right.
thought you were. And then it also opened your eyes to some of the possibilities, allowed you to see yourself as more than just a one dimensional figure.
Right.
And in medicine, anyway, I've always said that medicine is a series of uninformed decisions, right? So you go into it not really knowing exactly what it means to be a doctor, right? And then you choose a field based on a couple of weeks of having been exposed to it in medical school. So you really don't know what it is to be a pediatrician, or I'm an OBGYN. You don't really know what it means to be that. And then you go into life as an attending after you're done with your training. You don't know what that is either.
Right.
And so the fact that we've gone all these years through all of these uninformed decisions should inform us that we can rise to pretty much any occasion that we need to, that we have
Right.
so many portable skills.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that was, as I was going through coaching, it exposed that to me. I can do hard things. All of the things that I imagined that I want to do, they're skills. Do I know how to learn skills? Yes. You can go from in the morning, I don't know how to do a spinal tap, to in the afternoon, I know how to do a spinal tap.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
I can learn skills.
Yeah. The
And so,
impossible becomes possible.
right. And so that was one of the things, just really opened up my mind. And then, things are possible, and just learning the way my thoughts influence what I end up creating for myself, that was really powerful too. And so when I saw how powerful that was for me, that kind of clicked into as well with the coaching, and parent coaching, and just in clinic too, how I can impact families and teaching them these things. And I, because again, I saw how powerful it was in my life, I said, these are absolutely teachable skills that I can share with parents. Because I mean, parenting is one of the biggest things that you can do. And so a lot of parents would come in saying, I'm kind of learning on the job and I don't have skills. So figuring out a way to kind of consolidate that for them, was a profound way, especially since I wanted to be in
Yes.
that parenting space, parenting support, for a long time, and just didn't know how.
Yeah, you hit on a really big key, which is our mindset and our thoughts, because that's the beginning of our being able to do anything. And good evening, Dr. Tawana. Dr. Tawana is here with us, and she commented that we as physicians mentally limit ourselves. So again, we're talking about the mind, even though we're some of the smartest people on this earth. So kudos to you for not limiting yourself, for seeing, allowing coaching to help you to see beyond that.
Right. I mean, and even now when I look at it and I say I'm just a physician and I'm just a pediatrician, because also, when you look at the hierarchy of medicine, oftentimes you see pediatrics talked about as kind of lower or lowest on the totem pole. And so I didn't realize how much I had actually internalized that, because
Mm.
even as I was watching through that conference and, all of these different physicians are coming on, and I'm like, well, pediatrics is not as portable. You can't really do much with peds. And then Dr. Una comes on. I don't know if you know her from.
I do very
Dr.
well.
Una comes on, and then I was like, well, okay, now I
Right,
have to
right.
let go of that excuse.
Exactly. Exactly. So tell us some about your parenting coaching. How is that going? How is it structured?
So, a couple of different ways that I do it. One, actually, I do a lot of that in clinic. This has just made practicing that much different. And I would have those visits, and those visits where you look at the chief complaint, and you're like, uh-oh,
Yes.
because you know what's coming. But now it's so easy for me to really dig into the heart of the issue and speak to them in a way that they understand, parent and child, even down to the lower ages, which I thought I used to do a pretty good job of that. But with coaching now, I mean, just really being able to bring out, this is what you're struggling with, this is why you're struggling with this, and not me just telling them, but bringing them into this process. And they're like, oh, oh,
Ah,
so
yes.
those visits that used to leave me so depleted, because I'm like, I don't even know how to get them to understand this. Now I'm like, okay, here's another one, let's do this. And so both parent and child will leave saying, oh my gosh. And now again, I'm having even more visits where they're like, okay, well, we need to talk some more, we're back for another visit. I'm like, but I thought we were doing okay. Well, we just wanted to talk to you some more and work through
So
this.
then your coaching training has actually enhanced your pediatric practice significantly, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a teenager, he's vaping. Why are you vaping? We kind of work through this, and he figures out that he's vaping in response to how angry he gets. Well,
Mm,
I teach him how he can recognize his anger, feel it in his body, process that anger, so that even though he feels it, he doesn't react to life from that place. And
sure.
so I'm angry, sure, but I don't have to go vape. So now we have significantly cut down how much vaping he's doing, and he's recognizing and can talk, him and his mom, because then also with her, she was really reactive. There are certain things that were trigger buttons for her about her son from previous marriage. And so they would do this clash and spin. But now she's able to see that. And again, she's not reacting from that point. So, I mean, it's incredible to watch.
Wow. So now are you still working as an employed physician or do you have your own practice at this point?
I'm still working as an employed physician. My husband and I both work. I've never really liked the idea of owning a business, just
Yeah.
because part of my goal, and this is what I'm doing with coaching too, I want to own my time.
Yeah.
And I've never been in the space where I could see how, for me, and other people do things differently, clearly. But for me, I couldn't see how I could own my time and do private practice. But I will say, this was pre-life coaching. This was pre-exposure to all of these things. So I've just never explored that. I do coaching kind of on the side, and I'm shifting to where ideally I would be part-time by the end of the year, is where I'm trying to shift my practice.
Okay. So your goal is to be part-time coach, part-time pediatrician. So you're not trying to transition completely out of pediatrics.
You know, I love peds, which to all my fellow pediatricians, what's there not to love about peds, right? I do. And I think now that I'm getting to the place where I'm practicing more on my own terms, I'm directing my schedule more, I'm negotiating the things more that I want or don't want. I'm actually finding that I enjoy it again.
Yes.
So it wasn't so much the practice that I didn't like, but just this idea of how we were talking earlier, feeling stuck and not having as much autonomy. But now that I'm in a place where I can engage and negotiate differently, I don't know if I would ever leave medicine altogether. But I am allowing myself to have another dream where this is what I wanted to do. Let me explore it
Yeah.
and see where it goes.
Excellent. So tell me, aside from the impact that it's had at work, what's been the impact on your family life?
I think it's incredible. So there are times when my husband would say, "Okay, life coach." And he'll ask me things which make a difference in, how we communicate. I Life coaching can never make other people do the things that you want. It does let you manage yourself in a way that you can show up as the person that you want to be. And so when I show up as the person that I want to be with my husband, with my kids, then I don't have that tug of war of, oh gosh, I didn't, that's not how I wanted to, I'm able to do things where I can clearly explain my wants. I can clearly explain why I will do or won't do something, not from a place of fighting or anger or resentment or anything, just a clear statement of this is what I can and cannot do. I own my boundaries and I make great boundaries, again, not from a place of resentment or anything like that, but a place of love and compassion for myself and whoever it is that I'm making the boundary with. I'm able to be very consistent with my kids, when they're having whatever it is that's going on. I don't react to that. I respond,
Uh-huh. And
but I don't.
responding gives you the power.
Yeah, I respond, but
Yeah.
I do not react. And so, all of those trigger buttons, the things, there's a lot of mom guilt. So you do things that you really didn't mean to do, but you feel really bad about it. So you go ahead and do it, but it doesn't align with who you are. I don't have those kind of things anymore. Or even if I do feel it, I'm able to navigate that so that I respond and not react.
Okay.
My kids too are listening, they listen to all the things along with me, and they're learning some of these concepts too, their future selves. So for instance, where we would fight about, where are you putting your jackets? You need to put your stuff away. You need to hang it up. I just say, hey, your morning self doesn't like to be cold. So you could put your jacket, your nighttime self could put your jacket where your morning self needs it. And end of story. Now I'm not fighting, take your jacket up. He'll just come down. He goes, Mommy, I remembered my morning self doesn't feel cold now. Amazing.
Wow. Wow. So they're incorporating those lessons into their behavior. So do you find that it makes it a better family dynamic, family relationship?
100% so. 100% so. There are times, I think when I find myself like getting upset or overwhelmed, these are rarities where I'm like, oh, I feel this way, rather than before that used to be kind of a constant. Now I'm like, oh wow, I remember feeling this way. I haven't felt this in a while, huh? And I can sit and then process through, or we talk about it and so on. It's 100% different.
So now you mentioned mom guilt, and that's a huge thing, especially among professional women. We feel guilty because we're not spending enough time on our work. We feel guilty because we're not spending enough time at home. We feel guilty because we're not taking care of ourselves. We carry a lot of guilt.
You
So
do.
how do you help someone work through something like that?
One, I would say that we've all kind of tied into this idea of and it's a misnomer, I would say, the work-life balance. I call it a misnomer because I don't think that exists. We're on this elusive hunt for something that doesn't exist, and then it brings us a lot of guilt. There is a work-life presence. I am present in whatever sphere that I'm in. Finding that balance can never happen. So then you're always kind of spinning your wheels trying to go to that. But can you be present wherever you are? Absolutely. So if I'm at work, I am 100% at work. I do my best. I give my best work. When I am at home and I'm engaging, I am 100% present, engaging in that moment. Expectations that we have of ourselves, really looking into that. And this is part of, the coaching, bringing into awareness of the thoughts that you have. We have a lot of internalized beliefs about how we should be as moms.
Yes.
If I asked you, write a list of what a good mom should do, what a good mom is like, you write a list of those things. I mean, you can make pages and pages, right?
But who defines that, right?
Exactly. Who defines that? A simple exercise that I have moms work through, and the simplicity of it can, belie the power of it. Writing out those lists of a good mom should, a good mom should, a good mom should, write them all out. And then on another page, write out all of those things that you said. Instead of a good mom should, say, I choose to.
Hmm.
And two things happen. Either one of two things happen when you do that. I should, I should, I should. And you write it as I choose to. One, you will actually say, actually, I don't choose to.
Right.
And that's it. I don't choose to. And it frees yourself from that. Or two, if it is something that you say, I do choose to, it makes you reconnect with your reasons why. So then when you reconnect with your reason why, it's not like this external force is making you do things. You're like, oh
Right.
no, that's why I choose to do
So
this. Because
it doesn't feel so much like a burden.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So now, okay, so let's talk about, so we talked about the parenting piece. You also mentioned that you coach the teenagers. So how do you help them to navigate some of the things that are going on in the world right now, with the pandemic and, all of the different social unrest and things like that? I'm imagining you're seeing a fair amount of anxiety. How do you help them to process that in a healthy way?
So one of the things is normalizing that for them. I think just we forget sometimes that they're hearing things, they're seeing things, and we as parents, we tend to do this because we love them so much. We either want to shield them from things and we say, well, it's not that bad, it's going to be okay, type of thing. Or we just get into kind of that spin with them. So one, normalizing that, yeah, you're seeing all of these things and it's true. We have lived a certain way, we have grown a certain way, we have a certain path that we've made for ourselves, right? And up until our generation, I think that path worked. You go through high school, you go through college, you get your job, you do all of those things. They have lived through where these things are showing that maybe they don't pan out.
Right. Right.
So as parents, continuing to keep showing them this life that we grew up as the ideal, they're calling our bluff on it and saying, no, that's not. And so we need to learn. And this is what I kind of try to facilitate, learning that their world is different.
Yes, very different.
Very different. Acknowledging that. And then with some humility too, saying, hey, show us what your world is like. What are the things that are coming up in your world that we might not see?
Yeah.
And then once we learn out of kind of curiosity and a certain amount of humility, I'll say that again, we then can make that connection with them. And they're able to show us the places where things are stressors. And then we can give them their skills that they need. Because whenever they're acting out in whatever way that you're saying, oh my gosh, my teen is doing this, it's behavior is a communication. And so what our job is as parents is to see what are they trying to communicate.
Okay. So basically you're trying to get at what the underlying feeling is that's causing this particular behavior.
Right. Because it's not a behavior. No, there's no kid that wakes up and saying, what's the worst that I can be today? How can I aggravate my parents
Right.
the most today?
Right. I think you make a really good point, though, that their world is so very different and that we cannot hold them to the same standard. And I think that's true. It might be true of every generation, but certainly the last two generations. Because if we look at our parents' generation, it's also very different than the world in which we live, in the world in which we grew up. My mom started her job at age 19, and she kept that same job for 43 years.
Wow.
I can't imagine, I call myself the pivot queen. I will pivot in a minute at this point if it's, if it's not working for me,
Right.
if it's not serving, making me to be my best and helping, it doesn't fit in, it doesn't align with my family and my priorities, then I move on to something else. And I think that's our generation. And then this next generation is just, wildly different because they, the technology is there that wasn't there before. So they have so many other, concerns and just different stressors that we don't have a clue about really.
Right, right. I mean, their worlds are, when you say show me your couple of friends, well, who are their couple of friends? Who are their peers that are influencing the things that they're doing? It's this millions, billions of whoever's on social media, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then when we're looking and saying, oh my gosh, don't do this, don't do that with those few group of friends, they have access to all of these different people and are learning so many things. And if we know nothing about it, we can't have a communication with them. So one important distinction to make with how your relationship is with your younger kids versus your teens, when they're younger, they're coming to you to seek
Yeah.
that connection out, to get questions answered, support, whatever it is. When you shift into those tweens and teens, they actually start looking out. And so, where you used to be a source of wisdom and all of those things, you're not so much now. They don't really consider you as the first person to check in. So, the one main thing that you have left over is your connection with them. And so, you focus in solidifying that connection with them or reconnecting or whatever it is, because when they have that connection with you, that's when at some point they circle back around and say, hey mom, what do you think? Hey dad, what do you think? But our parenting, we focus on the behavior and we double down on all the things that we don't like, because we want them to be productive member of society. But guess what that does? It pulls away that connection.
Yeah. Wow. So all these things, there's so much to keep in mind, as a parent. And most of us, I guess for those who have multiple kids, it's you do have a practice kid and a kid that you know a little bit more, but most of it is really truly on the job training. So I'm so happy that your patients and their parents have you as a resource in their community. So tell us, if people are interested in working with you, where can they find you?
So I do have my Facebook pages where I'll post just little things as I'm just going through the day or going through my weeks. There'll be themes that I'm like, you know what? I think I should share about this because I'm just seeing it come up a lot. So that's Facebook, just my name, Maria Duroseau, and you can look me up on Facebook. Or I'm on Instagram, burntoutparent.md. So that's another place that I will post. You can, typically you can either DM me for a consult, or there's my Kajabi course where I have that parenting course, or you can set up a consult with me too, is usually how you can get a hold of me.
Very good.
Yeah.
So we're just about out of time. I like to end on the same question, or variation of the same question for all
Mhm.
of my guests. And so I will ask you, if someone's looking to up level their parenting, what is the single best thing you would recommend they do?
Becoming the best version of yourself is one of the best gifts you can ever give your children. When you get to a place where you've sorted through all your stuff and you don't have those trigger buttons, you've disconnected that wiring, so to speak, to your trigger buttons, you're able to distinguish yourself from your child, then you can parent for what your child needs instead of solving for whatever's going on here for you.
I see. So now, I guess I have a follow up question now. So how do you do that though? How do you become the best version of yourself? Is it through therapy? Is it through coaching? Is it through prayer? Is it all of them
All of
together?
the above. All of the above. It all depends. It all depends on what's going on. There's people who live with very real traumas. So depending on what your level of trauma is would determine, is it therapy or medication sometimes. A point on medication, sometimes I'll have moms who need to go on antidepressants, but they're terrified about stopping their breast milk supply, or and so they won't go on medication. I'm like, please, having a
Yeah.
healthy, safe mama is just as important as having that breast milk. Please go get yourself taken care of, But coaching too, I think one of the things, just reflecting on whatever your pain points are, and you can start asking yourself, why does that get me so upset? Why does that get me so angry? Where is this coming from? And then you start kind of sorting out in your mind, where these things are coming from, and that's what you focus in on and say, okay, this is where I really need to look at, and this is where I need to get the help. So this is what I do in coaching. We look at all their pain points and say, hey, why are these pain points coming up for you? And it's amazing to see the beliefs kind of being uncovered and saying, oh, that's why. And then you work through that, then you're on to success.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for all of the insight that you shared with us that will help us to become better parents, help us to become the best version of ourselves so that we can parent more effectively. I've enjoyed our conversation very much. Thank you for coming. For our viewers, I will actually be on vacation next week. So we're going to miss a week of Level Up Live, but I'm going to go on a much needed vacation. But I will be right back here on the 18th at 6:30 p.m. And we will have another interesting and exciting physician female guest at that time. So everybody take care. Good night.
Thank you. Take care.